In this video, I'm going to be guiding you on Chapter 21, Oligopolies. Oligopolies are a market that is dominated by a few very large producers, and the fraction of the market is usually served by a number of much smaller firms. So here are some features of an oligopoly. The first feature is that they have very few firms. In your textbook, it says 3 to 6 firms, but this is an arbitrary number. This could be anything. And for example, in the USA, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile are the market leaders for mobile telephone contracts, and they dominate a significant amount of market share. And using that example, large firms dominate, and a few large firms will have a massive proportion of the market, so they can set the price, and the smaller firms will just have to copy the price charge, as they don't have significant market power compared to the oligopolies. Using the same example of mobile contracts, the 3 firms I gave you are indeed very close substitutes, as they offer essentially the same thing. So what they have to do is deliberately make an effort to differentiate their products against each other. In the case for the mobile plans, many of these firms will offer extra coverage, super fast data speeds, data security, cloud storage, and many more add-ons. Other examples, such as car manufacturers, will produce a wide range of product, and each with their different styles, performance, and specifications that are tailored to the precise needs and wants to the customer. Next, high barriers to entry. This protects the businesses with incredibly high startup costs. Some examples of high barriers to entry to the mobile telephone carriers are underground fiber optic networks, overground cell tower infrastructure, very expensive government spectrum licenses, government zoning permits, network roaming agreements, and many, many more. It is possible for oligopolies to collude with each other. This is when they set up informal agreements to actively restrict competition. This is when they artificially increase the price together and restrict output. This is clearly a disadvantage to the consumer. Oligopolies are really good at non-price competition. So what is this? As these powerful firms would like to avoid a price war. More on this later. So instead of competing with price, they compete with value. So what they do is they spend a bunch of money advertising, branding, making loyalty cards, and giving you free offers. Some examples of non-price competition for mobile network carriers are better network coverage, free subscriptions to streaming services, bundling mobile home internet, exclusive smartphone trade-in and upgrade programs, first-class customer support, loyalty rewards, and spending a monumental amount on advertising. As you can see from these examples, price did not change. They just added more value to the service that they were selling you. Next, we have price competition. This is if one firm decides to cut its price, rivals must immediately follow, or they could risk losing their market share. Although advantageous to the customer, this is a major disadvantage for the firm, as oligopolies have the resources, money, influence, and assets, and they can continue to lower the price, which could potentially be trending down to zero, and the likelihood of them holding it down there and surviving is very high. This is what we call a price war, and it does not benefit any of the firms who choose to engage in it. Now moving on to some advantages and disadvantages of oligopolies. Firstly, we have choice. This encourages firms to launch new brands and products which provide consumers of a growing choice of products in the market. And because of these large firms, smaller firms are able to survive alongside these dominant firms by offering goods and services that will be tailored to the niche market. But the disadvantages is that there are no real differences between the products. For example, phone plans. There is really no difference between the data from company A and company B. And in some cases, large firms actually own the majority of the brand in the market. For example, Luxottica. They own Ray-Ban, Oakley, Persil, Oliver Peoples, Vogue, Arnett, Sunglass Hut, LensCrafters, Pearl Vision, Target Optical, and OPSM. Sure, you've got the choice to shop around, but they are all owned by the same company. quality is an advantage as firms constantly try to make their products better, resulting in superior quality for their customers. So they invest heavily in improving their product specifications, materials, and features to stay ahead of their fierce rivals. An example can be a telephone carrier upgrading their basic plan from 4G to 5G. And the disadvantages is that dominant firms could secretly agree to reducing product quality to save on production costs or research and development costs. Consumers will have very few alternative providers to turn to. As oligopolies compete with each other, they have essentially unlimited resources. So the advantage is that they can innovate to pull ahead. They actively develop new models or technologies that are superior to their rivals in order to resist competition and win market share. One example could be when Apple went from the Intel silicon architecture to their custom inbuilt Apple silicon, and this arguably revolutionized their laptops in 2020, as this gave them significantly more power and battery life compared with the Intel counterparts. The disadvantages, however, there will be wasted resources on advertising and promotion, which will be much better spent on genuine innovation. For example, one could argue that Chanel, Gucci, and Armani are relatively similar, and the only difference between them is the amount of advertising they've pumped in to their marketing campaigns. Or they can illegally collude rather than compete, as innovation costs a lot of money, which is disadvantageous to the consumer. Next, we've got collusion and cartels. Now, the advantages for the firms is that this ensures stable profit, and it completely removes the threat of all price and non-price competition. The overall supply is restricted, and the cartel now is essentially a monopoly. This is highly illegal. The disadvantages for the consumers is that they are completely exploited, as price-fixing agreements force them to pay significantly higher prices. If firms agree to share the market geographically, consumers face a complete lack of choice. And in the case for price wars, the net beneficiary of this is clearly the consumers, as they benefit from these price cuts as they pay significantly less. These price wars will force inefficient firms to either drastically improve their operations to survive, or they'll go out of business. And the disadvantages is that price wars are usually very short term. As smaller businesses are squeezed out the market, there will be less substitutes and thus choice for consumers. I hope that helped. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye bye.